Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the fiscal year 2023 annual audit webinar. My name is Greg Lynch. I chair the MIC3 Finance Committee. I'm also the commissioner for Washington State. I've been on commission, I guess, for somewhere around 15 years now, and I've been the only commissioner in Washington State, so I'm very, very familiar with the compact. I also have a military background. So I'm honored to be able to be the one today to talk a little bit about the annual audit. I'm also joined today by our executive director, Sharisa Mai. We also have Heath Huddleston here, who's the finance director for the Council of State Governments, and Rick Shields is the principal for Blue & Company. And Rick will be talking a little bit more specifically about the audit as we go on. For those of you that may be in the audience today and perhaps listening at some point in time after we're done the webinar, really the purpose of today's webinar is to focus in on the requirement that we have annually for the audit. And so that's why we ask Rick Shields specifically here and also Heath Huddleston here today to talk about anything that's got to do with the audit. We all want to be great stewards of the taxpayer dollars that we collect from all of our states. And this audit is a requirement. We do one every year to make sure that we're promulgating accountability the way that it's been intended. So it is all about accountability. We've had a memorandum of agreement that we signed as an MIC3 commission in 2011. We're one of 11 council affiliates that provide basically information to the Council of State Governments so that they can in turn provide support back to us. They being CSG, administrative support to the 11 affiliate organizations, us being one of them, that have got to do with legal support, human resources, accounting, IT, and also facilities. Back when we established that agreement in 2011, and really starting in 2008, we established with CSG an indirect rate of an administrative cost. It was set at that point in time at 13%. But then when COVID hit, a lot of things happened. That indirect rate was reduced to 5% for all the affiliate organizations. Last year, we basically renewed our partnership with CSG as an affiliate, and the current CSG administrative fee or indirect cost is set at 7.5%. However, this particular January, that indirect cost will go to 10%. As an affiliate organization, CSG also oversees the accounting functions for the commission, and as a result of that, they help us not only prepare for the audit, but obviously today talk a little bit about the audit. They also provide some great quality control for us, or another set of eyes when it comes down to our own accounting. So I see it's a big benefit in terms of the partnership that we have with CSG. In accordance with our commission's bylaws, and I mentioned the annual audits are required. And we've been conducting an annual audit with Blue & Company since 2012. In order to maintain the low rate, and on the direction of the Finance Committee, which I chair, we've signed a 3-year agreement with the firm, so they know that they can count on us to be able to provide them the fiscal resources it takes basically to do our audit. So we've had a great long-standing partnership. And again, when you start talking about care of taxpayer dollars, it's important particularly to have another set of eyes that are outside our immediate organization. So I want to say again, thanks to CSG for their great support. And you'll hear a little bit more about the audit as we go on. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask Reese to cover 2 or 3 slides that have got to do with some of the background relating to the audit. So Sharice, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Sure. Next slide, Lindsay. So as a reference, we just wanted to provide to those of you on the call today our dues history, which outlines our dues for the past several years, as well as the budget projections and the spent amount for at the end of each fiscal year. Of course, for fiscal year 24, we're in that currently, so this provides the number as of January 31st. And I also provided a link to these slides in the chat, so you can review these at your own leisure. Next is our Vanguard Investment Historical Report. So just to give a little bit of background, the commission, when I first started with the commission in 2016, they asked us to work on an investment of the revenue that we had in our bank account. And so we worked on that with the finance committee, and they came up with this investment plan. In 2017, they determined they would invest $350,000 in the Vanguard investment, which is tied to CSG again. And so since then, this is the growth of the value of the fund, and you can see the fund balance here. Next slide. Finally, we're providing the balance sheet, so you can see the total amount that is provided, that is in our bank account. And this includes our investments with Vanguard, as well as our cash balance available. And you can see we have $1.94 million, so we're doing pretty well. And I'll turn this back over. Next slide. I'll turn this over to both Rick and to Heath.
Thanks, Charisse. Good afternoon, everyone. Heath Huddleston. I'm the Director of Finance at the Council of State Governments. We just wanted to share a snippet, a couple snippets of the fiscal 23 audit report with you. This first slide is 2 paragraphs from the report of independent auditors on page 1 of your audit report. Essentially, the commission has received the most desirable opinion of an audit, which is that you're, in all material respects, your financial statements are presented fairly for the years that the audit was performed and referenced. So again, that's the most desirable score, for lack of a better word, that you can receive on an annual audit. Next slide, please. Again, this is a snippet of financial highlights that are in the audit as well. Some things to note: that the assets exceed your liability, which then becomes your net fund balance for the commission. Your all of your net assets are unrestricted, and there was a net position increase of 101K for the year ending in fiscal 23. Again, these are just key highlights. The actual audit report is, I think, 18 pages long, which has all of the standard financial statements listed in that report in the format that is required by US GAAP.
So the audit report, this is the audit report, and the opinion states that all of the financial statements are in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. There are no exceptions on the audit report. The management's discussion and analysis is intended to be fairly self-explanatory. So I just prepared some comments on highlights of the financial statements. Your due from affiliate, this is essentially your cash balance that increased $100,000 year over year. And that's due to the excess of revenues over expenditures and also the collections of receivables that you had year over year. You had minimal amounts at year end of payables and receivables. The operating revenues increased significantly year over year. That's primarily because interest rates went up significantly from 22 to 23. That's the investment income. And there were market recoveries during fiscal year 23. The other revenue is primarily the conference registration fees. There were approximately 48 attendees, or there were 48 attendees, approximately 50 in fiscal year 23. The operating expenses increased, although not as much as the revenues. Travel and meetings increased, as you might expect. There was an in-person meeting in Baton Rouge in fiscal year 23. The consulting expense increased due to work done by Embry Merritt Womack. That included the expansion to the National Guard, or work regarding expansion to the National Guard and Reserve, and state statute regarding the compact citation definition of active duty. Your advertising expense increased due to printing by Southeast Printing. A lot of that related to the in-person meeting, brochures, training materials, and compact rules booklets. And while the overall management fees did increase, the final amount was less than the budget, as there was a partial year vacancy of the communications associate and a vacancy of the administrative assistant position. The footnotes are consistent with prior years. The footnote here on page 15 shows a breakdown of your investments that you hold in your account with Vanguard. This is a breakdown of essentially the year-end amounts held by CSG. There's another report, but I'm going to stop at this point. Let me stop and solicit questions if there are any.
Rick.
Hearing none, there was also a letter that was sent. The letter is similar to prior years. It's required by audit standards and it contains standard language. There were no significant audit adjustments. There were no disputes with management, no consultations with other auditors. There were no control deficiencies noted during the audit. MIC3 staff was extremely helpful and easy to work with.
Thanks for that, Rick. Does anybody have any questions at this point for Rick? And as I said in the beginning, really the purpose of the webinar today is focus on specifically just the audit, which is why we asked Rick to come and give that thumbnail presentation. Any questions for Heath Huddleston at this point for CSG? I'm going to call the questions one more time before we wrap up. Any questions by anybody at this point? Therese, do you have anything before I have a couple closing comments at this point for anybody?
Not at all. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. So just a couple closing thoughts. Some challenging times, certainly. Everybody's still coming through COVID. And as you heard the description of some of the things that we talked about this morning, certainly COVID impacted everybody's financial situation. And it seems particularly with the indirect costs that they went down due to COVID, they're going to go back up again. But I wanted to especially thank CSG for their great support, and Rick for your continuing support by the firm for the audit, because I think really is important, and I meant it sincerely. Taking care of taxpayer dollars, particularly in these times, it's always been important. I think it's very, very important as we go forward in the future, given all the political things that are going on, and having those outside set eyes, I think, is really, really important. We want to remain transparent. I also want to give a special thanks to Sharice and Lindsay, who really, and Rick had mentioned it in his report around having a shortfall on some of the staff. All of the work that you've seen to get to this point was really done by Sharice and Lindsay under some pretty difficult circumstances, shorthanded. Commendable job for sure. And having been through dozens of audits and multiple different organizations, when you can come through and have a clean audit, that really says something about the dedication and the expertise of the staff. And I think we've got some great staff, again, with some great support by CSG. So unless are there any questions at all by anybody at this point in time, I'm going to say, thanks for attending one last time. Any questions? Well, great. Thanks, everybody. Let's go ahead and wrap it up, Sharice, unless you have anything else at this point.
Nothing from my side. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. This will be this has been recorded, so we will post it on the website and send it out through membership in case anyone wants to view the webinar.